and Alyssa, you can take it away.
Wonderful. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are really excited to talk to you all about Teach for America and the Operations Coordinator role at Institute. Before we get started, I do want to make sure that you are logged into the WebEx and have that information in the call invite, and just want to make sure everyone can see my screen. If at any point, like, I'm breaking up or one of the other facilitators is breaking up while we're speaking, or you can't see the screen anymore, please use the chat feature of WebEx just to let us know to make sure that we're all on the same page. So with that, I am going to kick us off. So tonight we're going to be covering a few different things, and we're going to start with an overview of Teach for America, our organization, and our mission. And then we're going to spend more time hearing more specifically about the operations coordinator role and actually hear from some former OCs about their experiences as well. We'll wrap up with some logistics about applying and what we're looking for in operations coordinators and some next steps, and then we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. So throughout the call, if you think of questions, feel free to type them into the chat log. You can also save them until the end of the call during the Q&A part. So before we dive in, I would love for all of our facilitators just to briefly introduce themselves so you know who you'll be hearing from throughout the call. So I will start off briefly and then we'll pass it to Chris. So my name is Alyssa Goodman. I am the Manager of Operations Training on our National Institute Operations team. I was a 2008 Charlotte Corps member and have worked at Institute a few different times. I actually started off as an operations coordinator in 2007 and have worked at Institute a few other times in other roles as well. So I'm really excited to talk to you all about the OC role and the experiences that I've had and others have had as well. So Chris, I'm going to pass it to you.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris Ash, and I'm the Director of Institute Operations for Teach for America Institute. Similar to Alyssa, I was also a Corps member. I was a 2006 Metro Atlanta Corps member. I taught middle school science and reading at John F. Kennedy Middle School in Atlanta's Vine City community. For those of y'all who are familiar with Atlanta, I was right down the road from Morehouse and Spelman, where I taught. And coming out of my second year teaching, I was a Corps coach at the 2008 Atlanta Institute, and then immediately after that, I joined the Houston team in my current role, and I've been working there since then. With that, I'm going to pass it on over to Melissa.
Yes. I'm so excited to get to talk with you guys today. I work on the recruitment team with Teach for America. I am currently based in New Orleans, and so I help recruit college students and recent college graduates to join our Corps, specifically based in New Orleans, and so I recruit a lot from the southern universities, and so I'm really excited to talk with other college students today.
And EJ and Newton, are you all out there and unmuted?
I am here. This is EJ.
Great. Could you do a quick introduction, Chris?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is EJ Blair. I'm currently a senior at Harvard, and I'm one of 3 CCC's campus campaign coordinators there. I also had the pleasure of being an OC operations coordinator in Houston this past summer. And I will be joining the Corps teaching. I'm tentatively placed in secondary math in Metro Atlanta as well, and I'm excited for that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Thanks for joining us, EJ. And we'll have Newton introduce himself and join us as well. So we are.
I just joined. Sorry.
Oh, perfect. Go ahead and do your Sorry.
Hi everybody, I'm Newton Atkins. I am a junior at Vanderbilt. I was an OC at Houston Institute last year. What all did you want me to say? Sorry.
That's perfect. You were an OC and where you currently are now. That's great.
Great.
Awesome. So we are going to jump right into the overview of Teach for America, and I'm going to pass it over to Melissa.
Yes. So I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of background about Teach for America as an organization in case you are unfamiliar with us or haven't heard of this before. Teach for America is a national nonprofit. And the reason that Teach for America exists is specifically if you look at this quote. This is why we exist as an organization. When you look at the education system in this country today, we see that there is a big difference between the quality of education, between the teaching, the level of expectations, between students that go to low-income schools and are growing up in a low-income area versus students that are growing up in high-income areas and go to high-income schools. We see that there is a vast difference in the expectations and just the different educational standards. Us here at Teach for America think that is an incredible injustice. We believe that no matter where you are born, no matter your zip code, every single child should be able to have the exact same quality education, no matter what kind of economic situation you live in. So again, make sure and read this quote. This is really the reason that we exist. In terms of the facts, this is a great slide to just show the importance of this issue. So 8% of kids growing up in low-income communities graduate college by the age of 24. That's pretty harsh. Only 8% of students that we work with are going to be able to graduate college. Compared to this next slide, which shows that 80% of kids growing up in high-income communities are able to graduate college. That is the stark reality of the education system as it is right now. And again, we see that as an incredible injustice that where you live determines if you can graduate high school, if you can go to college, and then therefore your future life opportunities. So, what we're doing about it, there's two different goals to Teach for America. We have our short-term mission and we have our long-term mission. So, in the short term, we want to bring excellent teachers into the classroom to teach in a low-income school for at least 2 years. So what we do is we look at recent college seniors, we look at professionals, and we have them come back and teach in the classroom for 2 years. We don't have to be an education major. We're really excited to bring in people from all different academic disciplines to come and to teach. And so we provide the training, the professional development to make you a successful teacher and to give students in these low-income schools the quality teaching they deserve. Then looking at our long-term goal, we absolutely believe that we can make a systematic change in this country. But in order to change the educational landscape and actually to make a difference, it's going to take more than people just being teachers for 2 years. It's going to take more than that. So what we do is we focus a lot of our training on making our core members exceptional leaders. So then after the 2 years, when their core time is over, some people decide to stay in the classroom. Some people go off into whatever their career interests were. So going off, becoming lawyers, doctors, business, journalists, whatever. But the concept is that this experience, being able to see poverty, being able to see the situation that our students are living in, you're never going to forget those faces. You're never going to forget what needs to happen and what needs to change in this country. And so what we are doing with our alums is that because of their development, because of their leadership, they are able to go off into different career sectors and still care about this issue, still fight for these kids. So what that looks like is people becoming principals someday, people becoming lawyers and changing education policy, people becoming doctors and starting up a low-income an office within a low-income community. All of these different things that will fight the problem from various career sectors is what's actually going to create change in this country. So that is our long-term goal. And then this year, we have more than 10,000 Teach for America core members teaching 750,000 students across the country. We have 46 different regions across the country. So we are so excited to see a huge number of core members that are right now making an incredible difference in students' lives all the way across the country. So now we are going to transition back to Alyssa. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about our training program and about the operations coordinator role, which is why
you all are here today. All right. Alyssa, are you there? Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. I was talking to myself. So in the summer of 2013, this coming summer, Teach for America will run institutes in Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, New York City, Philadelphia, Phoenix, the Mississippi Delta, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we're actually also going to have 2 regional institutes in Memphis, Tennessee, and Jacksonville, Florida. Across all 11 sites, Teach for America core members will come together for their intensive 5-week pre-service training program. The purpose of the Institute is to prepare core members to assume full-time teaching responsibilities in the fall and produce significant academic gains with their students, both in the summer and in the fall as well. Each institute team works closely with the local school districts so that core members can deliver a rigorous academic summer school program to serve up to 5,000 children in that district. Operations coordinators work to help support the staff and core members by assisting with and executing the day-to-day functioning of institute. Each institute serves between 500 to 800 new teachers and over 80 staff members. While operations coordinators don't work directly with summer school students, they do play an integral role in the daily operations of a program that trains the incoming core members to help make sure that they are successful for their students and for themselves in their own professional development. So in thinking about wanting to join Teach for America maybe longer term or joining and supporting the movement now, this is a great way for you to get involved while still in college. So one thing that I do want to share just to give a better understanding of Institute and what it looks like for core members is to share a day in the life of a core member. So I'm going to give you a minute to read over this slide to see what a typical day could look like. So one thing that I do want to note is that schedules do vary from institute to institute, but I did want to give us all a general understanding and outline for how days typically are structured for core members, which will tie in a bit more with what Chris is going to discuss now, more specifically about the operations coordinator role and how the operations coordinator role fits into the overall structure of the institute. So Chris, let me pass the controls to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alyssa. So we're going to talk about now about a little bit more about institute logistics and then also the specific projects that operations coordinators work on. So the operations team, including all of our operations coordinators, design, set up, and maintain all institute operations and logistics. That is, while we're once again not directly in classrooms teaching students, we actually provide the infrastructure necessary for our instructional staff members and our new teachers to provide an amazing educational experience for our nearly 5,000 summer school students. And so these 8 areas that you see up on your screen right now are the big domains within where we work. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually just going to dive into some of the specific projects that individual operations coordinators have worked on and also just highlight what this has looked like for individual operations coordinators. So what you can see up on the screen right now are just some of the specific projects that we might actually work on within those 8 different domains. I just want to highlight, like Alyssa said before, so that while the Institute actually looks very, very similar from across our 11 different sites, given the realities of the universities where we live, given the realities of the school districts where we are actually teaching and the cities that we're located in, some of the things that you might see here look a little bit different from institute to institute. So let's now actually dive into 3 different areas. So let's start off by just talking about supply chain management. And we're going to actually be looking at this through the lens of one of our operations coordinators, Leslie Alegria. So Teach for America provides supplies for all 200 of our classrooms and for each of the 150 staff members, in addition to setting up dozens of on-campus workspaces for staff members and core members. As you can imagine, there's quite a large number of supplies involved, upwards of about $50,000 per institute. In 2012, Leslie Alegria owned our end-of-institute supply return and inventory process. She was one of our operations coordinators. Leslie designed the project scope in terms of how supplies were actually moving during the 2 weeks of the institute. She devised a supply chain management plan and overhauled our inventory process to make it more efficient for future years and communicated this to all of our school sites. She said it means to return all of these supplies and completely oversaw the process across our 15 different school sites and all the different workspaces that we had. Leslie gained experience building relationships and networks, communicating effectively, and mapping out project scope and vision. More specifically, Leslie's leadership really strengthened the Houston office operations by greatly reducing the amount of time that went into this process and will go into this process for future years. And so once again, while Leslie is not directly in front of students, she's actually having a huge impact on the efficiency and the leanness of the Houston Institute, not only in 2012, but in 2013 and 2014. So let's now jump into another project, which is library circulation at our resource library. And so we operate a small library with approximately 10,000 to 15,000 books and teaching tools. And once again, this looks totally different at each institute. And we offer this for all of our teachers and staff. In 2012, Books by Goodness oversaw the circulation process for our 9,000 plus constituents. In addition to actually managing the circulation desk and interfacing with our core members and staff, Dulce actually helped design the process through which teachers would actually check out materials and maintain the systems which indicated which resources were checked out to whom. Dulce exercised her ability to set the logistical direction and helped ensure that all core members had access to the tools that they needed to do amazing things with their students. And so now let's dive into a third project, which is special events. And so we host a variety of large and small-scale special events, ranging from Teacher Move-In Day to an institute-wide field day for all of our core members and staff. In 2011, Nate French and Sarajane Davis worked with Rice University's dining services to set up an Iron Chef competition between 3 of Rice's award-winning chefs. We were able to have approximately 150 teachers and staff member judging, as well as providing samples of the meals to approximately 100 others. Meals range from lobster and crab crepes to a smoked salmon and dill sauce carving station. It was delicious. They coordinated the times and finances with the university, devised a day of plan and all of the logistics for the event, and then marketed the event to the Institute's community. Nate and Sarajane's contribution really ensured that core members were able to maintain their personal needs in addition to their professional ones. And obviously, as y'all saw earlier, there are many, many, many other projects, and this is just a very brief cross-section of the amazing things that our operations coordinators do actually on the ground at the Institute site. And so we've talked a little bit about the impact you can have, and we're going to dive a bit deeper in a moment into the experience in just a few moments when we hear from 2 of our previous operations coordinators. But for now, I'd just love for you guys to take a moment to review that blue bar right in the middle to actually check out some of the skills that you can build as an operations coordinator. Take about 30 seconds to read that blue bar. So operations coordinators, as you can see, develop and use just a wide variety of skills, from anything from actually devising what an individual system will look like to actually executing it, to communicating and building relationships and determining what is the best source of communication and what is the most appropriate time to implement that communication and to whom does that communication need to go. So I'd love to now pass this on over to EJ and to Newton. We'll start off with EJ, and we'd love to hear from y'all. And so EJ and Newton have come prepared to answer some questions. So really, what motivated you to apply for the operations coordinator position? What specific skills, knowledge, or mindsets did you shape or build over the spring or summer? And what do you believe was your value added this summer in the work against educational inequity, despite the fact that you have action in the classroom yourself? And so I'm going to pass it on over to EJ.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Ted Blair, and as I said before, I'm a CCC at Harvard, and part of what motivated me to apply to the OC position was the exposure I had with my recruitment manager at Harvard at the time. I felt like as an undergraduate who was convincing all of these seniors who were about to graduate to apply and to commit to 2 years in the classroom, I really needed the in-depth exposure and experience to Institute and to more of the organization. So this kind of reaffirmed some of the beliefs that I already had about the organization, and it was an opportunity for me to really realize that this was something that I wanted to do once I graduated and moved on. When I was in Institute, I had a fabulous time. It was great. Met a lot of people, had a lot of fun, but more importantly, I think it was a growing experience for me because I kind of saw Institute as a really well-oiled machine coming in. It's something that can kind of feel like you're just doing work that is relatively rote and it doesn't require a whole lot of thinking. But my operations director, who is kind of like my mini boss over the 6 weeks, encouraged us to explore new and innovative ways to take something that was pretty non-intense and to explore, a way to add value to that system or to that process. And I think 2 examples of this for me were really just going to Sharpstown High School, one of our school sites, and setting up the networks there. Some of the core members were complaining over the weeks that the internet was pretty crappy there, and we kind of just went and we rewired a whole bunch of routers and Ethernet cords to ensure that they had access to the internet and that they were, more quickly able to progress through their training. I felt like I was doing something in that moment, and I felt like, in several other moments where we're going to the CAPI Center where there are technical difficulties or where we're fixing some challenges with some of our equipment, whether they be printers or computers. You really see how, if you weren't there in that moment, things could have faltered and core members could have struggled more with their training. Altogether, I saw my role on the technology team to be a really growing experience, and I recommend it just largely to anyone who is leadership oriented and who is interested in not being at a desk for 6 weeks and being interactive, talking to a lot of people, having fun, and also really getting a better feel for whether or not you really want to be in the core. I think it's something that requires you to have a great dedication to urban education and to the organization, but at the same time, it's also a reaffirming experience if you have any ambivalence about whether or not you want to be a core member.
Hello, everybody. I'm Newton. Like I said, I have really applied to the OC position because it seemed like an amazing way to get to know Teach for America as an organization and not just as a potential future employer. And really, it was just that. And I really enjoyed my time with the organization, and I became to feel very connected to the organization, and in doing so, connected to the movement. And now I understand that, Teach for America is a wonderful organization, but it's not the end, it's the means to the end, which is ending education inequity in our country. And so I think just becoming connected to Teach for America, especially before my junior year in college, has really connected me to the movement in college, has motivated me all around. And now, who knows? I don't know if I'm going to apply for the Corps, but it's definitely motivated me in ways that I hadn't thought of before. I really feel like I gained a lot of management skills through the internship. As an OC, you're constantly in a position of leadership. So people are going to ask you questions and expect answers, and in doing so, you're given a lot of responsibility where you're going to have to take the initiative and you're going to have to be innovative because honestly and truly, the Institute really depends on it and depends on you. And so when you're making these decisions under pressure that you're very capable of, you learn to lead people and you learn to have people follow these decisions and gain confidence in you. And in doing so, you really gain confidence in yourself and your management skills. And like you just said, it was such a growing internship. I've had internships before where I didn't feel like I was growing, but in this internship, every day is different. Every day is a new challenge. And the leadership, I think, is just, I can't speak of it enough. Even though we weren't in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, I feel feel like my contribution to the movement was that I was able to not only support the core members at the Institute, but I felt like I was very, very pivotal in how the instructional staff went about their day. I was in a position where I interacted more with the instructional staff who were training and helping and supporting the core members. And so I felt like when I was able, to make their day more comfortable and more organized, they were able to spend more time focusing on the core members. And just like EJ, I got the chance to go to a classroom or a school, and I got to see some teaching happen in the classroom. And that was when you could really see the effect of all your work and the fruits of your labor, because you realize that the teachers would not have been able to teach at such a high level if they hadn't had the staff or the instructional staff instructing them and supporting them, which the instructional staff would not have been able to turn their attention to that if I hadn't been supporting them and making their day more organized and better and helping them with whatever their needs were at the Institute. So yeah, it was a great experience. I highly recommend it. And towards the end, when it's Q&A time, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, EJ and Newton. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Alyssa.
Awesome. Thanks again, Chris, for sharing more about the role specifically, and also EJ and Newton for sharing your experiences. It's really great to hear about what you all did at the Houston Institute. So I want to move into talking a little more specifically about some of the application information and logistics that will hopefully be some of the next steps for you all. So very quickly, I want to discuss what we're looking for in our operations coordinator candidates. So bottom line, we're looking for folks who are passionate about Teach for America's mission and who want to get involved with and support our organization and our vision for one day all children receiving a quality education. Since this is an operations role, we're also looking for candidates with strong operations skills, being highly organized, detail-oriented, and having a strong ability to think critically and problem-solve in various situations. And since a lot of the work involves working with other staff members, core members, and university partners, we're also looking for folks who work well with others and who have a positive and enthusiastic attitude and outlook. We're also looking for individuals who want to learn and who are continually wanting to improve and get better, but also helping others do the same. On the bottom, you'll see some special skills or some specific skills, which tie to some of the roles that Chris had gone over earlier based on the specific teams in which you may be working. For example, if you were on our technology team, we're looking for individuals who have a background in working with computers and technology, skills needed to help troubleshoot technological issues that may arise at Institute, similar to EJ's example. We're also looking for folks with marketing backgrounds and backgrounds in data management and special events planning. That's not saying like all of these things in this last bucket need to be something that you are really strong at to be an operations coordinator. Like I said, it is really specific for the team on which you'd be working and the skills that you would be bringing to that. This information is also listed on the OC application, which we will be going over in just a few minutes. So some specifics about the logistics for the role during Institute. For operations coordinators, Institute lasts 6 to 7 weeks. They arrive before core members to help set up the university systems and the site, and they stay a few days after to help close out the Institute. So Institute for core members is 5 weeks. For operations coordinators and other staff members as well, it lasts 6 to 7 weeks based on the setup and takedown time. During the application process, we will have a chance to preference your institute placement, which will all be taken into consideration during the interview and hiring process. For compensation, operations coordinators are paid an hourly rate based on your institute location and based on the state hourly wages there. In addition to the hourly rate, housing, food, and transportation to and from Institute are all covered. One other thing that is not up on this slide, but I do want to cover is just the timing of the application process. So the OC application is due Sunday, January 27th. You will then be notified whether you have an interview in February, and interviews will run from February through mid-March or so. And after interviews have been conducted, final notification for candidates will be sent out at the beginning of April. So now that we've talked through what Teach for America is, what the operations coordinator role is, and more about the specifics of the Institute, I want to talk about specifically how to apply. And we've had some questions about the application and where to find it on our website, so I do want to just run through that quickly. So on the site, and I have it posted back on the PowerPoint, you will go to teachforamerica.org/institute. And on this page, you will see Summer Institute staff opportunities, which you can put your mouse over and then click down to the application process and deadlines. This will bring you to a page that gives general information about the application process and deadlines, which you can scroll through if you'd like more information about those dates there. In order to get to the application, though, you'll need to select the region that is closest to you. So you may not see the actual city that you live in, but we ask that you choose the city that is closest to where you are currently living. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I would select that. And that brings me to a page that now is showing all of the Institute positions that are open. And I am going to scroll down until I see the operations coordinator roles. So one thing I do want to point out is there are actually 3 different listings for the operations coordinator role. One is specific for our regional institute in Memphis. The second is specific for our regional institute in Jacksonville. And then the third is the more general application. So one quick note that I want to say about this is if you are only interested in applying for the Memphis Institute and really don't want to be considered for any others at this initial point, you can click on the first listing for Memphis. Same thing for Jacksonville. If you only want to be considered for that specific institute site, you can click on the second to go through the application process. If you want to be considered or don't really have like a regional preference or institute preference for location, you can click on the operations coordinator general application, which is the third listing here. That does not exclude you from Memphis or Jacksonville. It just opens up the possibilities for the other 9 sites that we have, also including Memphis and Jacksonville if you're interested. So once you click on the role, you'll be able to scroll through and see a description of the position, responsibilities, skills, and what we're looking for, which we just went over, and some information about what needs to be included for your application to be complete. So you will need a resume, a cover letter, and the third piece is the operations coordinator applicant activity, which is the link is included there to make sure that you're completing all 3 of those steps along with the online application with your basic information, to make sure that it's fully complete. So you can read through this page, and then at the very bottom, you would want to click on Apply Online, which will bring you to a page about our privacy agreement and E-Verify notice. So hopefully you would click Accept if you do after reading through that, and that'll bring you to a login page. At this point, if you already have applied for positions with Teach for America, you can use that same login information. If you have not yet done that, then you would just create a new user account and include your contact information and the basics of like where you live, phone number, all of that. So with that, I am going to go back to the PowerPoint. So again, those are the steps, and I know I just quickly walked through them. If you have any questions during the Q&A part, please feel free to include them in the chat box. I do want to reiterate one more time the 3 pieces that are necessary to have your application be fully complete, which is your resume, a cover letter, and like I said, the operations coordinator activity, which is all included in the job description on the page we were just on. A few best practices before we wrap up here is to save your files as a PDF. So your cover letter and your resume, it's best to save that as a PDF just to make sure that the formatting matches the person who will be pulling it up on their screen to make sure it still meets the one-page requirement. And then also, once you've uploaded those documents, either in Word form or PDF form, however you're uploading the files, it's also a best practice to make sure that once it's uploaded to the online application, the website there, to also click on it just to make sure that it does open back up correctly and the formatting is correct and how you see it, to ensure that folks on Teach for America's side will be able to open the files properly as well once your application is submitted. So we just went through a lot of information and shared a lot with you all. So we would love to open it up for you to ask questions. And because we have such a large group here and we have muted the line, we are asking that you submit your questions through the chat box. And we're going to be monitoring that, and you can either ask the question to a specific person who's been on the call and presented so far, or you can just open it up to the panel to answer as well. And we are a little ahead of schedule, so we have about 20 minutes to answer any and all questions that you all have after hearing all of that information. So I will give you all some time to type your questions into the chat box.
And you all, for your questions, click on the Send To and then select Everyone from the drop-down so that everyone can see the question.
Hey, and I see that we got our first question from Melinda. Melinda, this is Chris from the Houston Institute. I'm more than happy to answer that question for you. So I'm going to actually answer this question in two different ways. And I'm sorry if it's a little bit unsatisfying. So the operations coordinator schedule looks really different for the very beginning of Institute and the very end of Institute and the very middle of Institute. That is, during the setup period and the closing out period, we actually are working on Saturdays and Sundays. So there's a period at the very beginning where we work for about 10 days straight just to ensure that the Institute is appropriately and fully set up for all of our core members and our staff members. And similarly, we actually have about 3 days to completely tear down the Institute. And Institute does end on Friday, so we spend Saturday, Sunday, and Monday actually tearing it down. That being said, during Institute, or during the actual 5-week Institute, your schedule is going to be more closely aligned to a Monday through Friday, with some, and depending on your cohort, there may be responsibilities on Sunday as well. But Saturdays are 100%, and I'm only thinking about the Houston Institute here, completely off for operations coordinators. And most of the day on Sunday as well. Once again, that depends on your actual cohort. Alyssa, Newton, or EJ, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I think you hit it right on, Chris. And I do think that's pretty standard across all institutes. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I do know that once systems are up and running, Saturdays typically are a day where systems are not, like the copy center and things like that, are not up and running. Sometimes on Sundays there are some hours in the evening, but typically it's like all day Saturday and the majority of Sunday as well, from my experience in terms of hours.
So the next question, is the position available to students after graduating from college?
Yep, and excellent question. And the answer there is yes. I definitely would not let having already graduated from college prohibit you from or prevent you from actually applying to the role. Each of the 11 different institutes do have different hiring managers, and so what we look for when we're selecting operations coordinators can be slightly different. But some of the most successful operations coordinators that we've had at the Houston Institute have recently graduated from college. So they already have the bachelor's degrees, and they were able to come to the Institute, two in particular, one before he started law school at Notre Dame, and two other individuals actually, before they started a full-time role in August. So absolutely, it is possible.
Another question.
Our next question is from Casey. On average, how many operations coordinators are accepted to each institute? And so I'm only going to speak for our national institutes here, and I'm not going to talk about Memphis or Jacksonville, our two regional institutes, just because the scale of the institutes nationally versus the regional ones is so different, and the size of Memphis and Jacksonville are remarkably different from each other, so I don't want to give you misleading information there. At the Houston Institute, we're going to be hiring 19 operations coordinators this year. In my tenure, that number has varied from 15 to 20, and it does look different at every institute. Typically, it's within the range of about 17 to 22, depending on the actual institute and its needs and the size of the number of core members that actually attend that institute.
Great. So I think the next question, and there were a few that touched on how many positions are available. I think the next, on a different topic, is do people usually get their choice on location, and how does that work in the process?
This is Chris. I can speak to that again. Sorry, I've just been doing this for like 800 years, so I have a lot of experience about this. Sorry. If you're getting sick of hearing my voice. So in terms of location, I don't want to give you any misleading information here because I actually see very much what this looks like in the hiring stages and not necessarily in terms of the application stage where our human assets team actually funnels individuals to specific institutes. And so the process is very, very, very high level, and knowing that I am not involved in that process at all. So there is probably much more that goes into this than the magic that I'm about to describe to you. Basically what happens is after all of our applications are selected, anybody who has been actively recruited to an institute is typically funneled into that institute, or if people have compelling reasons why they need to go to one institute versus another. For example, if somebody is married or if somebody has a child and actually needs to be in a certain location, individuals are typically funneled there to those institutes. Or if people have major conflicts, such as, maybe somebody is in school until the middle of June, and so the Houston Institute or the Phoenix Institute, which start relatively early, would not actually be appropriate because that individual is not actually available during that time. And so that person would probably be sent to either our New York Institute or our Philadelphia Institute. So what we do is we actually look at everybody's preferences and everybody's availability and then divide up our pools evenly based on that, or relatively evenly, give or take one or two individuals. And so that was a very unsatisfying answer, and I hope that I was able to answer that. Historically speaking, I know that the people who have come to the Houston Institute have all been folks who have typically put Houston in their highly preferred or their preferred. And I just want to speak really quickly to that. Something that I've learned in my work with Teach for America, having the luxury to work in different cities from where I live or have lived, and having the luxury to relocate to different areas, has been that I actually had a lot of misconceptions about a lot of the cities where I've worked. So including Atlanta, where I lived for 4 years, including Houston, where I've now worked for 5 years, including the Mississippi Delta, where I visited on several occasions now. And I really am now very fortunate and feel very fortunate that I've had the ability to check out all these different locations so that I was able to actually dispel any preconceived notions that I had about those cities. And actually all of those places that I just said, if you would have asked me when I was 21 and applying to the Corps, I would have said, actually, I really have no interest in going to the South. I am a Yankee through and through, and I have no desire to leave Michigan or New York or those areas. And now, actually, I love being able to split my time between New York and Houston because I really am a Southerner at heart. So I do hope that while you certainly do have preferences about where you want to go, that you do remain open in your preferences and where you actually get placed.
And Chris, do you want to touch on the dates, if you know them off the top of your hand?
Ooh, that's a nice question. Yeah. And so I'm going to speak real quickly about the Houston Institute. This is one of our earlier institutes. And right now we are looking to have a core member move-in date of June 9th, which means that operations coordinators would come 1 to 2 weeks before that. And that operations coordinators would be leaving the week of, I'm going to pull out my calendar real quickly, would be leaving the week of July 15th. And like I said, Houston is one of our earlier starting institutes, and so these may be starting a little bit, the other institutes start at most 1 week before that, or up to 3 to 4 weeks after that. And also all of the dates are located at the application website. I see that we have a question for EJ and Newton, and that is, how did your experience as an operations coordinator shape your desire to join the Corps? Really good question, Jordan. Thank you.
So I can start by answering that, and I actually wrote an answer thinking that we might not be able to get to it. I wrote it to everyone in the chat box, but I just basically wanted to reiterate how illuminating it is to visit the classrooms. That was really when I and many of my peers who are now going to be in the 2013 Corps, a lot of the OCs that I worked with, we all really had great experiences in seeing the Corps members teach and interacting with the students and just, really getting a lot of encouragement out of being in the schools where the Corps members are every day.
Yeah, I'm only a junior, so I haven't applied yet, but I'm thinking about applying for the junior deadline, which is coming up soon. But basically, I think, like I said earlier, I think it really, we talked about Teach for America, but, it's just a great experience to get to know the organization for what it is, instead of just talking about it as, like, the people that are going to employ you. And I think that in this role, once you get to know it as an organization, you come to realize that these people are some of the most inspirational people you'll ever come across. And really, I've shaped a lot of my friendships. We still keep up with each other. All the OCs still have a giant text and Facebook group that we talk to each other through. And it's very encouraging because throughout the year, as people were accepting the Corps, we were like, oh, congrats, and all this stuff. And I think that, it's nice to join a movement where people are very passionate about the same thing as you are. And so more than anything, that's what the OC has done for me, and it's shown me that this is a movement that can't be stopped, and it's contagious and makes you want to be a part of it. I don't know what the future holds, and I'm definitely looking into Teach for America, and the OC role was definitely a large part of that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I did see a few questions about the application process, but I just wanted to clarify on those while we still had some time. So when we were going through the process before, and I showed you the 3 different listings, one was for Jacksonville, one was for Memphis, and one was the general. If you're interested in applying to Jacksonville or want to be considered in those schools as well, all you need to do is fill out the general application. So rather than you just need to fill out the general application, and on that you would be able to preference as well Memphis and Jacksonville. If you are only interested in applying for Memphis or only interested in applying for Jacksonville, just one, then you would use those other applications. Otherwise, you can use the general application, and it's all going to be filtered into the same pool. Memphis and Jacksonville will just go into their own pool since they are regional institutes. So I did just want to clear that up. And there was a question about uploading the resume and cover letter in PDF form. I recommend that just so that the formatting does stay the same. So if you have one font on your computer that you're using and perhaps the person on our end doesn't have that font and it messes up the formatting, just to make sure that it's all aligned in how you're seeing it on your end before you submit your application, we do recommend that. It's not a necessity though. When I was applying for positions years ago for the OC role, I uploaded things in Word form. So that is definitely an option as well. But if you are able to, PDF would be helpful just to make sure that the formatting stays the same. So I just wanted to touch on those. But Chris or Melissa, I know we have lots of other questions out there.
Yeah, one that I thought In terms of the regions, which ones they should they select a region that they want to go to, or should they select a region where they're living during the summer, or select a region where they go to school?
So when you select the regions from the 46 different regions, not the different institute sites, but the actual, like the different regions, like do you live near Detroit, or do you live near the Twin Cities? So at that point, actually, it's not going to make a big difference if you put where you live over the summer versus where you live during the school year. So just go ahead and put what you believe to be your primary residence.
Okay.
That's not going to have, and the purpose of that is actually more for our instructional role than for the operations coordinator role. So it won't make a significant difference one way or the other.
Yep.
That being said, when you actually complete the application, you will have an opportunity to list your preferences in terms of all 11 of our institutes, in terms of high, medium, or low preference. Sorry, let's cut you off like 4 times. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was going to ask if you can talk about the rooming situation, like where OT stays usually during the Abbott Institute.
Yep, excellent question. And this, once again, sorry, unsatisfying answer, looks a little bit different depending on the institute site. But for the most part, it's quite standardized. So everybody stays, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about all staff members, all core members, we all stay on campus at the university site where we are housed. And the housing can look a little bit different depending in terms of, do you have your own bathroom? Are you sharing the bathroom with other individuals? Is there a community bathroom on the floor? And so that can once again look different depending on the institute you're at. And even I know at the Houston Institute we actually have 5 different room configurations depending on which room you're in or which building you're in and which floor you're on. However, I have not heard from any operations coordinators that the living situations were prohibitive of people's satisfaction or their abilities to do their jobs. And similarly speaking, the vast majority of our core members, and when I say vast majority, I'm talking like 85% and up percent of our core members actually find their housing to be sufficient for the summer, and I know that number for staff members is significantly higher. So it's like in the 95 to 100% range of, depending on the institute, staff members believe that their housing is sufficient for the summer. And these are actual numbers that we gather from survey data.
Another question, are the programs in Memphis and Jacksonville different than the other locations?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Yeah.
Do you want to touch on it?
Go for it.
Sorry, we keep cutting each other off.
So yes, they look slightly different because they are regional institutes. So they are different in terms of like number of core members coming in rather than being a national institute that will have a couple hundred core members coming through, 500 to 800. Regional institutes are only having their region's incoming core members, which could be still a couple hundred, but not the full-scale range of 500 to 800. With that, there are slightly different structures in terms of how the operations side is going to be set up. They will still have operations coordinators. They will still have the other operations positions. It just won't be as large of a scale as what Chris described before, being typically 17 to 21 OCs. They will have potentially 5 to 10 based on their need and the number of core members that they have coming in. So they are structured slightly differently that way, and also have more of a regional focus in the sense of making sure that core members are making connections within the community that they will then also be teaching them for the next 2 years. We're really excited about these regional institutes starting and what we're going to see from them. The operations coordinators will still be working generally in like the same types of work streams that Chris described before, again, at a smaller scale than what you would see at one of our national institutes. Chris, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there.
No, nope, I think you totally covered it. I can say that in terms of the work of the operations coordinator, just to reiterate, I don't see it varying significantly, just given that the Institute, and while the substantive component of Institute might change in terms of how we're actually preparing our teachers, I think the operational components and the infrastructure will pretty much remain the same.
And Alyssa, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the application activity. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so I can pull it up. That you will see on the link that was included. I would actually like to turn that over to Chris or to EJ or Newton to speak a little bit. You guys have completed the activity, but if there are any big pieces that you remember, from my experience as an opportunity to walk through that activity, it was very it gave me an idea of a very real situation that I may be at. So I found it helpful in that way to think critically about the questions that were asked. Chris, EJ, specifics that you want to add about the activity itself or tips for that?
So the activity is really looking at your ability to just set a vision and to develop a plan. My advice for you for this is just to leverage any planning experience that you've had in the past, and to feel free to format this, to shape this any way that actually feels most strong. Remember that this will be read by a variety of individuals, and so feel free to use the means, the formats, that feels most natural to you and that you feel as though you're able to most easily convey information that is directly related to the question. Try to super vague. But I also know that each hiring manager looks for something different. And so I would recommend going on there and actually checking this can be something that can take a couple hours to make and to craft. And so I would recommend actually going on, if you know you're going to apply, check out a few days ahead of time and craft your activity, go back, revise it if necessary before actually submitting your activity. If y'all have very specific questions about the activity, put those up in the chat log as well.
Yeah, and we are just at time. I can't believe how quickly this passed. As we wrap up, and I know this seems kind of like an abrupt stop, so I apologize for that, but you want to be respectful of all of your time I have this evening. So as we wrap up tonight, I want to thank you again for joining us. It's been great to engage with you all. And just wanted to end with a few quick reminders. So the application deadline, as you said, is Sunday, 27th. If your question was not answered, I would highly recommend going to the FAQ at the main site that I showed you and can be accessed through this link down here, that's teachforamerica.org. The frequently asked question page that will answer many questions, and if they don't, then you can also feel free to teachforamerica.org. With that, thank you again for joining us. It was great to read all to share information about the operations coordinator role. We look forward to seeing all of your applications soon. And a wonderful evening. Thanks, everyone.
And this is Chris. I'm also more than happy to stay on the line for about another 5 minutes. But to answer any additional questions that y'all have. I know there's quite a few in the chat log, and I just want to make sure that we are able to appropriately before y'all while you actually have us on the phone. So I'm more than happy to stay on for about another 10 minutes.
Thank you.
In regards to the PowerPoint slide, I'll have this PowerPoint slide to everyone on the call, so you'll be able to get it that way, if you were wondering.
I'm seeing a question from Kimberly. asking about the staff move-in dates. Move-in dates do look different based upon each staff position. So, for example, our operations coordinators are actually the first individuals to move into campus, and our core member coaches and are actually some of the last people to move on to campus. What you can expect is, depending on the institute, to move in 1 to 2 weeks the actual institute start date. So, and by start date, I mean the day that core members are actually arriving. I know it's a huge thing. Our operations coordinators become 10 days before core members move in. And to Heidi's point, yes, you are absolutely correct that it is different depending on, your question is, I'm assuming it is different at specific locations, but what is the earliest date that the job would begin? You can expect late May to be the earliest date depending on which institute you be working at. And so, I know that the Atlantic Institute is probably going to start around June 3rd, and so operations coordinators would probably move in toward the end of the week of May 20th, so probably around the 24th or 25th. And in Houston, we're looking to have operations coordinators move in. We start a week after that. We're looking to have operations coordinators move in Friday, May 31st, or Saturday, May 1st.
Chris, can I add something to that quickly as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Chris just touched on the move-in dates, but one thing that I've seen a few of you mention as well is like conference calls that will be happening throughout the spring. So while operations coordinators don't attend a training in the spring prior to the move-in date, you may have calls with your manager, with your operations director, about the systems you may be working on and more like general getting to know you type things. So when you get to institute, or your initial training, you can hit the ground running there. So there may be a few calls throughout the spring once you're hired, but no other traveling that Chris mentioned.
That's a really, really good point. Alyssa, thank you so much for bringing that up. What you can expect is no more than 20 hours between April and May. And I don't mean like 20 hours a week, I mean like 20 hours over that 8-week period of conference calls and individualized pre-work before you actually move in. Thank you so much for having that, Alyssa. Jane had a really good question on the subject of choosing different institutes. Would the application consider the academic calendar of the college? Yes, absolutely. That is 100% the sort of thing that if you had a conflict with, that we would totally consider. Walter, I know that you had a question when does the job fully start, April or June? So we make offers toward the end of March, beginning of April, and at that point, once again, you'd be engaging in some pre-work and some conversations, which you would not actually be moving into the actual institute until just before, about 10 days before I'm actually at the institute. So the end of May, beginning of June, depending on your institute. I see a question from Jonathan. 2 questions. And the question says, I currently live in Atlanta and want to apply to Atlantic Solution in Georgia Tech. Since I have a home here, do I still have to live on site? If not, will I receive the housing costs as payment? And so to that question, what we do is we provide a space for all staff members to live. However, if you choose to use that space or not, it is completely up to you. There will be times when you'll certainly want to be closer to campus, because of an earlier start or a later end of your day. So if you're on the residential operations team, you may be asked to do morning duty, which can start as early as 5:15 a.m. Or if you're on the office operations team, for example, you may be working in the copy center, which can end as late as midnight. And then debriefing can go until like 12:30. Obviously, like you would never work from 5:30 a.m. until 12:30 a.m. That would be crazy. And that would never ever be asked of you. But there may be early mornings or late nights when you would want to have that space available to you. Whether you decide to stay there or not is completely your business. Like, y'all are adults. Y'all are professionals. We will not be coming around and doing bed checks. I don't expect anyone to be doing bed checks for me. I'm a 30-year-old man, and I would be livid if that happened in my professional experience. And similarly, I would expect y'all to feel similarly if you're in a professional experience where bed checks are happening. That being said, Teach for America would not be able to actually provide you the cost of housing if you did not accept housing or if you elected to not spend time at your own house. When I worked at the Atlanta Institute as a teacher coach in 2008, I was actually living in Atlanta at that time as well. And what I found to be really helpful was on campus Sunday through Thursday, and then I would actually go and stay at my house with my partner Thursday, Friday, as a way to once again like engage with my loved ones and my friends, as well as to sleep in my own bed and have a little escape from the Institute. That being said, in Houston, I don't have a house there. I live in New York City, and so I stay on campus the entire time. I find that to be absolutely fantastic as well. And also the question was asked, how much the hourly rate typically? And this, oh gosh, this looks so different depending on labor laws and depending on individual sites. I'm going to actually pass that question over to Alyssa. Do you know that off the top of your head?
One reason I don't is because of what you just said, because it varies state by state based on the labor laws there. We work with our human assets team and with the legal team to make sure that we're meeting the requirements of each state, since it does vary. So we don't have like an average pay because it really is dependent on the state in which you're working. If you have specific questions about that, you can email institute@teachforamerica.org. If you're offered the position as well, that information would be included before you would have to accept that, so you would know going in. It really does vary from state to state based on the labor laws there.
And also, I know that while there's also salary information up on the website, and while the hourly rate does differ, all operations coordinators of our institute make approximately $2,500 to $3,000 salary in addition, and that's all pre-tax, in addition to receiving housing and food and travel to and from the institute for the entire summer. And the housing and food is my favorite part, if you want to know the truth, because it means that I don't have to pay rent or buy groceries. And it actually ends up being a significant amount of money. I see a question from Sharnice, and that question is, are the training dates online or at the actual site where we apply for? What happens when you attend the training at the particular site? So once again, you'll see when you go to the application website, you'll actually see all the different institute start dates. Once again, you can anticipate moving in about 10 days before core members move in, once again, depending on the actual. And if you're unable to attend due to a conflict, once again, things such as abroad, and you won't be back in the country, or you have an internship that doesn't end until that date, or you have class at the end of May, beginning of June, just go ahead and indicate that on your application. There's a spot to list individual conflicts that you have and the dates that are on there. You'll also have an opportunity to list your first available start date. I see a question from Larissa saying, is there a location in Atlanta? Absolutely, and that is located at Georgia Tech, and that is my home institute where I was a core member myself. And map, it's amazing. Sorry for vegetarian. From Maddie to everyone, we'll be able to Skype with us while we are there. And is it okay if we were studying abroad, or will we miss events during this upcoming semester? That's a really good question. Every time I have onboarded a group of operations coordinators, there's always been one or two who are studying abroad. And always able to make, and this has never posed a challenge for being able to join in to our calls or if you're studying abroad through when you're asked to move in, that actually would pose a problem because that would mean you're unavailable to come from whatever country you're in to the actual institute. Last year we actually had an operations coordinator who was and once again for everything that happened during April and May, she was able to call in and it was totally not a problem. And in addition to that, the process is completely over the phone, so she was able to join in on that as well. Michelle has a question. Process we get sorted into the different teams, office, tech, etc. It's a really, really good question. I'm actually now with the operations director for the Houston Institute. And so what we do basically is after the interview, we look at the pool that we have, we look at all the openings that we have across all the different cohorts, and based upon your knowledge and based upon the actual director, who would be your direct manager in that role, we actually place people there. So when you're applying, once you get funneled into an individual institute for any of the spot or positions available at that institute, and it's not until after the interviews are completed that you actually put onto your individual cohort. And I know in Houston, for example, I actually wait to see who the coordinator team has accepted their offers before I make any definitive placements where people go. So I wait to see which individuals I have on my team before actually placing them into specific roles because there is a little bit of a puzzling part there.
Thanks so much for sharing all of that, Chris.
It looks like most of the questions I'm seeing are actually a repeat. Donna Kim had a really good question. Do operations coordinators need to participate in a training workshop sometime around April? Yes. And so operations coordinators actually engage in a series of phone calls through April and then an on-site training is actually at the institute site. And those calls are institute-wide, and so we have phone calls for all the operations coordinators of the institute, as well as in your individual cohorts or one-on-one with your direct manager. Titan, yes, just the essay questions. And so you, in your cover letter, as long as you answer those 3 questions that are posed, you are golden. Oh man, there's another question about asking if there's an Atlanta Institute. I'm glad that Atlanta is such a popular site. Houston is also amazing. So I'll make a little plug there.
There's a question that pops up about you have to pay to transport yourself to institute, or is there any kind of transition funding?
Excellent question. Again, I just want to reiterate that this is a professional experience and that if you are selected for the role, we are interested in you and we will do anything to get you into the institute site, obviously within reason. And so, yes, all food, all dining, all lodging, and transportation to and from the institute will be provided. This also includes costs such as shipping to and from the institute, obviously within reason, and as well as baggage fees. You can't bring 12 bags because each bag is at $250 each. We are not for profit. That's just not how we roll. Within reason, so like 1 to 2 bags, totally okay. And when you actually do book your travel, if you are flying Teach for America, you'll actually book your travel on your own, but it will all be paid for by Teach for America. So if you're flying, it will not be covered by Teach for America. If you're driving to the institute, you'll be reimbursed based on the number of miles that you drove.
To go off of what Chris said, all of that will be shared as part of the offer if you receive one, because institutes do have some specific information in terms of like the process of if you're checking bags or needing to. All of that is shared well in advance of when you would actually be moving to the institute to make sure that you're on the same page about how much you would be reimbursed and what the process is for submitting that if needed.
To Sarah Chapman's point, for the on-site training, yes. So that is over the summer. So that is your first couple days when you're actually on the ground at the institute. So, for example, in Houston, our operations coordinators are moving in on May 31st. The very first day of training would happen on June 1st. To a point, no, you would not have to pay to get down to Institute. We will definitely pay to fly you down. Andrew had a question about the activity. And so basically what you do is you just go ahead and read the prompt, and you'll be developing an action plan and a project plan based upon the prompt that you read.
And there are guiding questions to help you think through that process to make sure that that you're understanding the activity when you read the prompt. So there are some guidelines there that will help you in like how to see that and possible formats that it could be in, along with guiding questions to help you think through the activity. Great. I think we got
and it seems like...
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. I think we're going to say the same thing.
Go for it. It's all you.
So I think we got to the bottom of the questions and hopefully touched on yours throughout that process. If we did not, I apologize. You all were asking such great questions and we were trying to get to all of them. If in leaving this call you feel like you still have questions or things weren't answered, I would recommend that you go to the site here, teachforamerica.org/institute, and there's an FAQ page there that has a lot of helpful information that may touch on some of your questions. If it does not, there's also an email here that goes to our human assets team, and they will be able to get back to you or put you in touch with someone who will be able to provide more information about your specific question. So if you have further questions as you're going through the application process or didn't feel like yours was fully answered in the call tonight, please feel free to use either of these pages or email address to make sure that your questions are answered. We do want to make sure that we get you that information so you're well informed. Any other closing thoughts, Chris, Melissa, EJ, or Nathan, if you're all still out there?
No, but thank you so much for all the thoughtful questions. I'm really looking forward to reading about 150 of y'all's applications. And enjoy the rest of your Thursday night, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. We look forward to seeing your application. Have a great evening.